Okay guys, so I wanted to do a little video to review the data classification topic we have been talking about most recently. This is from the 1.2 handout where we talked about types of data and we talked about levels of measurement. I know we had some people out and some people who didn't do as well maybe on the quiz as I would have liked, so I thought this might be helpful if I put together this video to just briefly review the different levels of measurement, how they connect to the types of data, and some of the homework questions that we had. So we have 4 levels of measurement: ratio, interval, ordinal, nominal. As we look at these, we're going to talk about these levels of measurement as being based on 2 types of data. The first, qualitative, that's with an L, okay? And the way I like to remember that is thinking about that L as being, for example, labels. So we can use some of the alliteration. All right. And then quantitative. Okay. We're talking about quantities. Okay. So we're talking about numbers. But numbers we can do meaningful math with, or useful math, as someone in class said. So we've got quantitative, we've got qualitative. Qualitative might also make you think of quality, like categories of quality, like good, poor, neutral, that kind of thing. Okay, some of the things that come to mind. So the way this works is we try to assign a data value the lowest level possible, because the further we're able to go down in the levels of measurement, the more we're able to do with the data in terms of different ways we can display it and different ways we can analyze it. So I'm actually going to start talking about ratio. We know these are going to be numbers, okay? And numbers we can do useful math with. Specifically, they will be numbers for which we can calculate meaningful ratios. So what are ratios, right? Things like 2 to 1, 1/2, right? This is where, for example, if I'm talking about ages, okay, I can say someone who is 30 is 3 times as old as someone who is 10. Okay. But there is a key consideration here, all right? And that consideration is the scale must start with a true 0. And we talked about this a bit in class. So what has a true 0? Well, for example, age certainly does, right? Because we start at no time on this earth, and then we're seconds old and minutes old and hours and days and months, right? So nobody's negative years old. Nobody's negative feet tall or negative pounds in weight. So some of the other ones that might be here would be weight, height. Temperature can be here, but temperature in Kelvin, because that starts with a true 0. Okay. All right, and then we're going to talk about interval. Interval are also data items that we can do meaningful math with, but we can't do ratios. We can only calculate meaningful differences. Maybe, averages, perhaps sums, but meaningful differences would be a good focus point. So, for example, calendar years. 1997, 2005, etc. Okay? I can find differences between these years. How many years were between 1997 and 2005? But I can't say that the year 2000 is twice as long on this earth as the year 1000. I can't do ratios because there are those BC years. All right, so I've got BC and 80 years. There's no true zero for calendar years. There's no true zero for temperature in in Celsius or Fahrenheit. Those scales have negative numbers, so I can't calculate ratios there either. I can't say that 100 degrees Fahrenheit is twice as much heat as 50 degrees Fahrenheit. I can't do that because there's negative degrees. I can talk about 100 degrees Kelvin as being twice as much heat as 50 degrees Kelvin because kelvins start at 0. Okay. So that's the quantitative. Then I go up into the qualitative. Okay? And I can see some numbers here too, but the numbers would not be numbers that I could do any meaningful math with. Right? We talked about in this category of qualitative, we might see things like telephone numbers, social security numbers, numbers on the back of jerseys. Those aren't numbers I can do meaningful math with. Okay? So ordinal, what I'd be talking about here would be data that I can put in some meaningful order. So this could be things like grades, A, B, C, D, F. There's a meaningful order to those. A is better than B, B is better than C, C is better than D. Okay. We talked about rankings, top 5 basketball players, categories, like very good, good, neutral, bad, very bad, something like that, right? Where you can see there's a range there. Those would be some examples, okay? And then nominal would be data that can't be put in any meaningful order, okay? Maybe it's just things like names, countries. I'm trying to think of other examples we had. Types of food, languages, eye color, okay? Things of that sort. All right. Now notice, something that's ratio, like weight. Well, I can find differences between weight intervals. I can put weights in order from least heavy to most heavy. But I position weight down here at ratio because I can find ratios. I know if I can find ratios, I can do the other things as well. All right, but I want to put it at the level that allows me to do the most. Okay. All right, so let's pause for a moment and we'll open up the pack we had and look at some of the examples. Okay, just a reminder, we're in the data classification pack 1.2. Also, you have all your notes from that, but on page 12, there's a nice table that reminds you for each level of measurement, what can I do with it? Can I arrange it in order? Can I subtract data values? Can I determine if one data value is a multiple of another, meaning ratios, right? And you'll see ratio is the one that we can do the most with. Okay, so I'd take a look at that. And then they had some great examples of data sets and what you could do. Okay, the only correction I'd make here is for ordinal level, we're just going to talk about that as being, sorry, I did the wrong one, as being qualitative, not quantitative. Okay, because if we have quantitative data, we're going to talk about those as being either interval or ratio. All right, so some nice examples here, please review them. All right, so let's take a look at some of the examples we talked about in class. Okay, level of measurement for which data can be qualitative. We said that's nominal or ordinal. Okay. Quantitative, we said that's going to be interval and ratio. So if we know a data item's qualitative, it's going to be one of these two levels of measurement. Quantitative, one of these two. Okay. True or false? Data at the ordinal level are quantitative only. We're going to say false. They're qualitative. For data at the interval level, you cannot calculate meaningful differences. That's false. You can. That's the definition of interval. Most types of calculations can be performed with data at the nominal level. Sorry, more types at the nominal level than at the interval. False. More calculations can be done at the interval level. You can't calculate at nominal. Data at the ratio level cannot be put in order. That's false too. Can be put in order. Okay. All right, classifying data by type. Telephone numbers in a directory. So they want to know qual or quan and reasoning. Telephone numbers in a directory, that's just a list. Qual. Maybe just a label, right, of somebody's phone number. Okay. Body temperatures of patients, well, that's going to be Celsius or Fahrenheit, so that's quantitative. Okay. Lengths of songs, that's time. Okay. That's going to be quantitative. Player numbers, those are just labels, qualitative. I'll add my reasons, right? We can do math with times, how long something is. We can do math with body temperatures. Is somebody's body temperature 10 degrees more than someone else's? Math that makes sense. Okay. Weights of patients, weights of infants at hospital. That's quantitative. We can do math with those. Baby weighs so many more pounds than another baby. Responses on an opinion poll. That's probably qual. You know, do you agree? Yes, no, maybe, right? These are sort of labels or categories. Heights of hot air balloons. That's going to be quan. Heights, those are things that we can do math with, find differences. Eye colors. Well, that's going to be qual. Those are just labels, qualitative. Carrying capacities. How much weight can a pickup truck carry? Those are numbers we can do math with. Student ID numbers. Qualitative. Those are just labels for people using a number as a label. Species of trees. I still don't know what species of trees to talk about here, but they're just categories of trees. So qualitative. And then wait times at a grocery store. Again, that's time. We can figure out who waited longer and by how much, so quantitative, because we can do math with those. Okay, I'm going to pause the video here and we'll record part B for the rest of the problems that we talked about.